Oh, hi, everybody. My name's Matt Storrs. Welcome to Mattsplaining. Today, we have an amazing expert that's going to talk about something that they're very passionate about. Expert, please introduce yourself and tell us what you're an expert in.
Thanks for having me, Matt. My name is James Mack, and I am an expert in rodeo. I was a bull rider and team roper, and calf roper for about 16 years.
That's fascinating. My understanding of rodeo is that it is kind of an ancient sport that has its roots in the horse rearing of Spain. And
Well, not Spain, Mexico.
okay, Mexico, sure. Spain, Mexico, what have you. But basically, there's kind of a history of dressage, and a lot of the horses that couldn't make it as dressage horses, kind of like those, jumping over the hurdles and stuff like that. Kind of there's a main line between that dressage to rodeo pipeline, if that makes sense. And when those horses come in, they were like, we need to do something with these horses. So we may as well, get an event around it as much as we possibly can. And so they started adding, like, what other livestock do we have? What other things can we do to give the horses, give these animals something to do, give the people that have had this history of, I'm hesitant to say failure as dressage artists, something to do. And that also takes me to the rodeo clowns, which this is probably pretty spot on, but like Rodeo Drive in California, my understanding is that that was actually founded from the dressage, like, initial creators of rodeos. And the rodeo clowns actually developed the first clothing that was sold on Rodeo Drive. So for a period in the 1940s and 50s, there was a very clear phrase in California and Los Angeles where this recently used clown clothing from all of these rodeos from across the country were being used and being sold to the people of Los Angeles. Unfortunately, it didn't catch on. The big shoes, not as prevalent these days, unfortunately. But
Well, I guess that's depending on what time period, because I could see like rich white people buying, all kind of stuff that doesn't make sense to the regular person.
exactly, that's ultimately the most important thing that they learned from that. It's like, okay, well, maybe we don't sell clown clothing, but we can really expand what our capabilities are as clothing designers. So that is my basic understanding of it. Other than that, my understanding of how it is competed in today is that there's a lot of rope. Hold on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rope. There are a lot of people that enjoy going. My understanding is that once you go one time, it kind of changes you forever. You will no longer be able to say that you've never been to a rodeo. In
Yeah.
all circumstances, you can say, this is not my first rodeo, regardless. And I, personally think that everybody should go to at least one so that they have that phrase in their back pocket. And as somebody that has personally been to several rodeos, I respect it as, honestly, an art form. I think that a lot of people, they focus on, like, the violence as it is kind of perpetuated in our society, but it's like, hey, this is really good. This isn't just something for drunk people in a bar to mimic because they decided to buy a bull to get people to come in.
Yeah.
This is something where people are really putting their time and effort into it. Yeah. How do you feel about that? How correct would you say that my analysis was there?
A couple of things that I would kind of change is the horses that you use for dressage. I had a sister that did that. It's completely different breeds of horses, so that's a little off. Also, the just a little bit on the origins of rodeo is essentially it started nowadays. Like if you're in Brooklyn, they'd call it toxic masculinity, but it was basically something for the cowboys to do during their downtime, to kind of be like, hey, who's better at the things that we do on a daily basis Yeah, being a ranch hand or a cowboy, how whatever word you want to use for that, that's kind of where rodeo started. It's like most things. It was a guy, really toxic, really bored guys with a bunch of testosterone sitting around saying, "Hey, how can I prove I'm better than you?"
I see.
So yeah, dressage, just to kind of clarify, usually uses more thoroughbred horses, like Tennessee walkers, or like I said, thoroughbreds, Arabic horses, Arabian horses, things like that. Just because they're a little bit prettier than, as my sister used to say, than paints and quarter horses, which are usually the breed that are used in rodeo. Not only that, but quarter horses and paint horses are very much a North American breed. And so that's kind of why they're used in rodeo, whereas dressage started in Europe and it was more of a royal demonstration.
I
Um,
see.
and that's why you have like the fancier, the more for lack of a better expression, the prettier horses that
Okay.
do that. Yeah, and a paint and a quarter horse are essentially a little bit different, but they're pretty much come from the same family. So they're the ones that you would usually see a lot of the Native Americans using also, because they were over here in North America. Um, a couple things you did get right.
Okay.
You did say rodeo clowns. That is exactly what those people are called that you're referring to.
Hmm.
But I want to make sure and clarify, you do have bullfighters in there too that some people confuse as clowns.
I see.
Um, and they're not clowns. So they have a completely different point in life. So when you say you've been to a rodeo, like obviously you have like the comedic act that's out there that's telling the jokes and stuff like that. That is your rodeo clown.
Hmm.
Um, your bullfighter, on the other hand, not necessarily just for bulls, but in general, they are the ones that may look like clowns, but they're not wearing the big shoes. They're wearing running shoes. They are probably the toughest people I've ever met in my life, because they're willing to walk out there to a 1.5 ton, sometimes 2 ton bull, and get in the way, and distract that bull away from the cowboy, so that way the cowboy can get away, or at least get the bull away from them, so that way they don't get hurt or get hurt even worse.
I see.
There's a lovely little saying in rodeo, is it's not if you're going to get hurt, it's when and how bad. So um
Okay.
just to describe some of the injuries I personally had during
Hmm.
rodeo, I've broken a wrist, I've had a level 3 concussion, I've broken my jaw. Some of the other injuries I've fortunately seen somebody fall under the bull
Mm.
inside of the chute, which, if you've been to a rodeo, the chute is the little square area that the bull sets in while the cowboys getting on top of them. And
Hmm.
they couldn't get the gate open, and that was on national TV. Tough Heaterman got, as we lovingly call it, mud stomped by the meanest bull ever, and that, like, it just kept stepping on him and stepping on him and messed him up pretty good. He was lucky he didn't die that day.
Yeah, my goodness.
But yeah, just to explain some of the different events. So a lot of people, when they hear rodeo, they usually think just the bulls, because that gets the most TV, because like anything else, that is the most exciting for most people.
Right.
Bull riding is the only event that is not part of a daily work for cowboys or cowgirls.
Hmm.
Um, that is literally just, okay, let's see if you have enough backbone and balls to get on this huge animal that can hurt you, and can you hang on for 8 seconds.
And
Like
it's always 8 seconds.
8 seconds is always the rule for any of the riding events, such as whether you're talking about bareback riding,
Hmm.
saddle bronc riding, or bull riding.
Okay.
So 8 seconds is where they've kind of come up with, hey, here's what you need to be able to stay on for. I've tried to look that up numerous times, and I've even asked judges like where the 8 seconds came from, and they're like, we don't know, but we think that's long enough.
Okay.
And I
Yeah, kind of just
completely
something
agree.
that got grandfathered in to some degree.
Yeah, exactly. The some of the less I know you mentioned violent, and yes, bull riding is very violent. Like I said, essentially you're strapping yourself to a ton and a half to 2 ton animal that really doesn't like you to begin with and doesn't want you on there. And one of the things that people don't quite understand is these are not just wild bulls that are pulled out. Like a lot of the bulls, when you get to the professional level, whether it's the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association, PRCA as it's normally called, or whether you're talking about Professional Bull Riders, Canadian Bull Riders Association, when you get to that level, those bulls are bred for that.
Hmm.
And they get trained like any other athlete. Like the bulls go through training.
So the bulls go through training to basically buck people as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And in different ways. So that's one of the other things is every bull, just like it's almost like, any other sport. So like, for instance, if a batter's facing a pitcher, a pitcher is going to throw different types of pitches. It could be a fastball, it could be a curveball, they could have a knuckle. Well, bulls do the same thing. They can roll on you, which means like literally they're leaning so hard to the side that when they go to turn, that they whip you.
Okay.
You also have bulls that go straight down the line and they're bucking so hard it'll flip you off.
Okay.
Or they're really hard turners. The bull that I got my bad concussion on was a bull named Tilt-A-Whirl, and he lives up to his name.
Yeah, I would imagine was Tilt-A-Whirl named prior to, like, was that a name that they provided to it in anticipation of what they expected of him, or was it like this bull's been around for a while, we've renamed it Tilt-A-Whirl?
No, usually they just start out with a number.
Okay, so that you
Um,
kind of earn the name, so to speak.
yeah, so they look at the bull, and sometimes it's based off of who their heritage comes from.
Okay.
So who their dad is, because of course bulls are all male.
Hmm.
Um, and it could be based off of their dad. Like Bodacious was based off of his father. Bodacious was one of the most prolific bulls. Almost went unridden his entire career
Hmm.
until a very infamous incident. Tough Heaterman, once he came back from getting stepped on, ended up riding Bodacious, I think, for 16 seconds
Oh
straight.
wow! So double
Yeah,
the expected time. That's a great comeback story.
yeah.
Uh,
And that was due to two different reasons. That was due to one, getting payback for him being stepped on,
right.
and two, and there's a movie about it called 8 Seconds about Lane Frost,
Hmm.
who Tough Heaterman and Lane Frost were best friends, and unfortunately, Lane Frost got killed by a bull, got skewered. So he's the part of the reason there's a lot of safety now implemented in bull riding. So
That is good. That was going to be something I wanted to touch on, but unfortunately, we are running out of time. If people wanted to find out more about bull riding and rodeos in general, and about you, where could they find out that information?
if they want to find out about me, I am a stand-up comic also, and they can go and find me on any social media at James Mac, MAC comedy.
Hmm.
If they want to find out more about rodeo, because all we talked about mostly was bull riding, but there's a ton of other events. There's also international levels, like you have rodeo in Germany.
Hmm.
You can go to prorodeo.com, or you can go to, like, if you just want to know about professional bull riding, you can go to pbr.com. So
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you being on today, James. Thank you all so much for listening. My name's Matt Storrs, and this has been Mattsplaining Rodeo.